Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. I'm Errol Lewis. Trying to jumpstart his campaign, mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo slammed the frontrunners, Zohran Mamdani's affiliation with the Democratic Socialists of America for their policy stances on the economy, policing, and jails, arguing that voters do not know what he really stands for. Our State House reporter Bernadette Hogan joins me now with the latest from the campaign trail. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Errol. Defunding the police, seizing the means of production, ending jails. These are all items that the Democratic Socialists of America do support. And earlier today, the mayoral candidate, Andrew Cuomo, brought up a slideshow asking reporters to ask Zohran Mamdani whether he still stands by those key policies that Andrew Cuomo says are controversial.
How about closing prisons? How about reducing the police budget down to zero?
Mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo is continuing to take aim at Democratic frontrunner Zohran Mamdani's affiliation with the Democratic Socialists of America.
And prisons and jails. New York City's right now in the middle of a whole jail construction program, right? And again, these are directly from their charter. Defund the police, cut budgets annually towards zero.
Laying out the DSA's platform in a slideshow and even arguing New York voters likely did not know the policies Mamdani stands for.
I think if they knew that, they would have never done it. I think they knew freeze the rent, and they did not know that it was only for rent-stabilized apartments. And rent-stabilized apartments are only 30% of the total housing units. Nobody told them that. They didn't read that anywhere.
Mamdani led Cuomo in the ranked choice vote by over 12 points after primary night and is currently the frontrunner against all mayoral candidates. A Mamdani spokeswoman told New York One on Wednesday the candidate believes that it's government's job to make people's lives better, and his platform to do so is public, specific, and clear. That's what he's accountable to, not those of any other organization or individual. Cuomo also said if Mamdani is elected, then President Donald Trump would follow through on threats to punish New York, referencing his recent order to send troops into Washington, D.C.
If Zohran Mamdani became mayor, how long would it be before he took control of New York City? A day? 2 days? A week?
This week, Trump called New York's bail law a tragedy after signing an executive order targeting states with cashless bail policies. Cuomo signed the original changes to the bail law in 2019 that has since been amended multiple times, accused by Democrats and Republicans of being too lenient on criminals. When asked if he regretted greenlighting the original policy,
I would sign it with the amendments. If you remember, when I proposed it, I wanted judicial discretion in the bill, right? That was in my initial proposal. The legislature refused.
And meanwhile, Mayor Eric Adams did receive a notable endorsement today, Errol, by the Sanitation Workers Union, Teamsters Local 831. And all of this is a part of the campaign trying to prove that he is worthy of re-election and saying, look at these municipal workers, they think I've done a good job, and they're backing me for another 4 years.
Is Andrew Cuomo saying that the national charter and the national positions of the DSA should be attributed to Zohran Mamdani? Because you could take that for the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. There's all kinds of stuff in there about charter schools, all kinds of things that Democrats say that they believe, but not every last Democrat signs on for all of that.
And Andrew Cuomo was asked that question. Listen, you're a Democrat. Do you agree? Or has there ever been a policy disagreement you've had with the Democratic Party? And Andrew Cuomo appeared to be a little stumped, but he did say, well, I don't know if there's ever been something that I don't agree with. But I mean, that seems to be largely impossible. I mean, basically, Errol, what Andrew Cuomo is trying to distinguish Democrats from Democratic Socialists, and he wants to paint Mamdani into this corner to say, listen, he's not a Democrat at all. He's actually a socialist. So Cuomo's concerns or Cuomo's continued slideshows about Mamdani's affiliation with the DSA, you know, we have asked Mamdani about this. Last week, he had a hotel trades worker event, and Mamdani said, and as the statement said earlier from his spokesman, Mamdani said, well, listen, you can see my platform and you can see what I, as a candidate, support. But there are bits of the DSA that I do support.
Okay. Thanks very much, Bernadette. Stay right there. I want to bring our Ayanna Harry into the conversation as we talk about the state of the race for mayor. Cuomo has done a few press conferences where it almost resembles the old briefings that he used to do during the COVID era, right? Yeah, in fact, and when I walked into the first press conference that he held at the Sheraton, I immediately felt like I was transported back to Albany in 2020. It's clear that Andrew Cuomo, for the most part, seems comfortable sitting on this stage, having a presentation, having a PowerPoint, being able to go through and make these points. And so, you know, Andrew Cuomo has been out and about on the campaign trail this week, but for the most part, he doesn't share that information with the press. He doesn't share a public schedule. It seems like he prefers to answer questions and give more in-depth answers about where he stands on different topics, sitting at the Sheraton behind the desk with the PowerPoint to help make his points, Errol. But for the most part, is Mamdani engaging? Is he responding when we hear these statements from Andrew Cuomo? I think yes and no. There have been some times where Mamdani, I think before the Democratic primary, Mamdani seemed to be responding less. We are seeing him punch back a bit more, but he still is selective when he does or does not choose to engage with Andrew Cuomo. Yeah, I mean, I guess the question on the table politically, you know, their internal strategy is up to them, of course, but I don't know that they're necessarily fighting for the same voters. Well, right, Mamdani is fighting for well, actually, Mamdani is trying to broaden his support. He's already said that he's been able to connect with voters that never voted before, whether they're immigrant communities or younger voters, and he's saying he could be a mayor for all people. Andrew Cuomo, it seems, is trying to continue to separate himself from those on the left who, one could argue, did vote for Mamdani, and trying to appeal to this group that maybe are more moderate, more conservative, possibly Republicans. And to the point of the Mamdani versus Cuomo dynamic, Zohran Mamdani had a whole tour where he said it was an anti-Donald Trump tour, but it seemed like that whole week that he went off on display, it became an Andrew Cuomo versus Zohran Mamdani back and forth. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of tough from Cuomo's point of view to sort of, if I understand this right, he's basically telling people, hey, you may have voted for him in the primary, but you made a mistake. Yes, and I think that does raise the question, Andrew Cuomo, you were campaigning, you were a candidate during the primary season. Did you do enough to communicate to voters everything that you were saying now? If you're saying that voters weren't aware, why weren't they aware? You had a platform, you had millions of dollars in your campaign account. There was, you know, other organizations helping promote you. Why didn't that message get out there when you were his chief opponent? Okay, we shall see. Thanks very much, ladies. Great talking with you. It is time for a break now. When we come back, we'll bring you an exclusive report on how our city's enforcement of sex work has dramatically dropped over the last decade. Later on tonight, I'll be joined by a leading advocate for the closure of Rikers Island after the 9th person died while in Department of Correction custody this year. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
What do we have going on here?
Well, I heard you guys talking about online threats, so I built an internet for it.
We have Spectrum, so our internet blocks threats automatically.
Oh.
But the internet is full of trolls, so you keep a lookout.
On it.
If it's connected, it's protected. Spectrum Internet with advanced Wi-Fi.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You done with the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Some of Zohran Mamdani's rivals see a real vulnerability in his campaign support for decriminalizing prostitution. But looking at exclusive data, New York One found that the city has already been decreasing its arrests of sex workers for years, including under Mayor Eric Adams. New York One investigative reporter Courtney Gross joins me now with an exclusive report. Good evening, Courtney.
Yeah, what we found is that these arrests really aren't prosecuted too often. Now, this piece of legislation that's creating all this controversy was discussed a couple of years ago, but it didn't gain much traction. But now prostitution is a hot topic on the campaign trail.
I needed something that allowed me to work a minimum amount of time in order to pay my bills.
A minimum amount of time with them for the most amount of money, I assume.
Correct.
Laura Torlaschi was in an unusual line of work.
What line of work do you do?
So I am a sex worker. I use it kind of to fund my writing and my activist work.
Starting at 20 years old, for several years, she was a sex worker. First in Miami, then here in New York. She is disabled and says she needed work that didn't take much time. She met clients online.
For financial reasons, I ended up in sex work, and there were a lot of times where kind of the psychological terror of realizing that I could have an arrest record and I could throw away all my parents' hard work because of what I needed to do, the work I needed to do to survive, was not particularly comforting.
It's this work, which is illegal in New York, that's now a big topic on the campaign trail.
Legalizing prostitution is not the way to bring down crime.
I'm not going to leave this city to someone that wants legalized prostitutions on our streets.
Because leading Democratic candidate for mayor, Zohran Mamdani, has supported legislation in Albany that would decriminalize sex work here in New York.
What I would tell these critics, and they include Mayor Adams and Andrew Cuomo, is to look at what the policies that have been pursued over the last few years have actually left us with.
In reality, there has been a dramatic shift in how the city treats sex workers in the last decade. According to data New York One obtained through the state Freedom of Information law from the NYPD, arrests for prostitution-related offenses by the NYPD have fallen drastically in the past 10 years, from thousands a year in 2014 to just 302 last year as of early December. Both the Manhattan and Brooklyn district attorneys told New York One they have not prosecuted sex workers for years. The Queens district attorney dismisses prostitution cases if the worker accepts and complete services like counseling. The Staten Island DA says the office offers diversion programs when appropriate. The Bronx DA has no policy on prostitution arrests.
The way that police in New York, and really throughout the country, but like in New York City, engage in policing sex work has shifted. The exception really is what is happening in Queens.
Arrests in Queens appear to be going up this year, specifically on Roosevelt Avenue. That's where the NYPD and the Adams administration are cracking down on illegal brothels
and street-level prostitution.
Since the crackdown started in October, there have been 397 prostitution-related arrests as of the end of June, according to the mayor's office. Advocates acknowledge the idea that prostitution would be completely decriminalized in New York is a long way off.
That is something that we know as advocates that this is not something that's going to happen tomorrow. In New York City, but we are laying the groundwork to have the complex conversations so that eventually consenting adults can do what they want to do safely.
At least for now, the Mamdani campaign says it's not something that's part of his agenda at City Hall. Some hope that changes.
Criminalizing any aspect of the industry only leads to driving the industry further underground. It leads to cutting sex workers' income, which makes them more desperate and more willing to compromise their boundaries. And I want to see a New York City where sex workers are not afraid of being re-victimized by a carceral system.
And we did get an additional statement from the NYPD that we can pull up here. It says, quote, the NYPD has moved toward a victim-centered approach that emphasizes providing support services for victims and survivors of sex trafficking over enforcement. This shift in focus places a greater emphasis on those who traffic individuals and buy people for sex. And Errol, that's really a sentiment or an approach that we heard from the other DAs that don't prosecute sex workers in this case, that being in Manhattan and Brooklyn, that they do still prosecute people who patronize sex workers.
But I mean, there's human smuggling, there's sex trafficking, there's abuse and coercion of all kinds that are going on. That's all adjacent to all of this stuff. Do the NYPD and the district attorneys spend any time on that?
They do say that they do. I don't have the data right in front of me. And that's also the argument on the campaign trail, particularly from Andrew Cuomo, who really raised this issue a couple of weeks ago and brought it to the forefront after really no one was discussing it at all, trying to put the spotlight on Mamdani's position in particular is where does he really stand when it comes to the prosecution, the arrest of sex workers and prostitution. And honestly, in my conversations I've had with the Mamdani campaign thus far, they haven't really been able to say quite specifically with great detail about what his approach would be. They say it's not on his agenda right now. It's not on his agenda that he's running on. We know what his agenda is, that being, the buses and the childcare, and they really don't want to talk about this issue.
The bill that he signed on to never got passed, but it sounds like the data suggests that it might as well have been passed, because if there's a law on the books, there's a crime on the books for which there are almost no arrests and no prosecution in any kind of systematic way, is it really a crime?
Yeah, and the legislation that he signed on to in particular, and that is being pushed by the advocates that we spoke to, decriminalizes the conduct for the patron and the sex worker, but it keeps in the criminal code and on the books the trafficking, the coercion, whether or not there's a pimp involved. So theoretically, prosecutors, the NYPD, would still be able to go over those other, more dangerous crimes that they say that they do go after now.
Okay, thanks very much, Courtney. We are going to take a short break now, and when we come back, after several delays, Amtrak unveiled its new high-speed Acela trains. That happened today, and our Kevin Fry took the ride up from Washington, D.C. He's going to join us next to talk all about it. Stay with us. This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York 1 for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
We chose Spectrum Business because every second matters in our operation. We need a network that can move as quickly as we need to.
We are a takeout restaurant, half our business is online. So we needed something dependable, reliable, with great service.
The state-of-the-art facility depends on a state-of-the-art network to support classroom engagement.
Join the network made for business with solutions made for every size. Visit spectrum.com/made for business to get started.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time. And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan. Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York 1 to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm
Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first, stay up to date and informed with News All Day. Weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. After years of delays, the fastest trains ever in the U.S. are finally hitting the rails. The next generation of Amtrak's high-speed Acela fleet enters commercial service tomorrow, making runs between Washington, New York, and Boston, and promising peak speeds of 160 miles an hour and a smoother ride. Kevin Fry in our Washington, D.C. bureau was on board for today's inaugural trip, and he joins me now to talk about it. How was the trip, Kevin?
Well, I mean, look, Errol, we know that the current fleet is certainly showing its age, and we finally, after years of talking and talking and talking, got to see these trains in action. Finally leaving the station, more than 4 years behind schedule. Top officials took the wraps off Amtrak's new Acela fleet Wednesday, a day before they begin to welcome passengers.
We're going to be able to carry more people on these trains, which hopefully means better pricing. It's going to mean better revenue, but most importantly, a better experience for the traveling public.
Spectrum News got an inside look at these new super-fast trains, joining a preview ride from Washington to New York. Amtrak is touting all sorts of new features on this updated fleet, from better signage to improved Wi-Fi, albeit we already saw some glitches with that during today's trip. This train also can go faster than its predecessor, and they're promising a smoother ride, courtesy of new tilting technology aimed at helping these trains navigate the curves in the Northeast Corridor. There are also new creature comforts, including easily accessible electric outlets, headrests on the seats, plus an upgraded cafe experience. 5 new train sets are entering service initially, with all 28 expected to be on the rails by 2027, at a total cost of more than $2 billion. They will replace the current Acela fleet, which premiered nearly a quarter century ago.
We welcome our special guests on board for this incredible day.
The rollout is a long time coming. The new Acelas were supposed to premiere in 2021, but faced extensive delays as Amtrak worked to prove the trains meet safety standards. A 2023 Inspector General report also identified defects in all of the train sets that had, to that point, been assembled. Andy Byford, who has worked for transit authorities in New York and around the globe, including recently overseeing high-speed rail for Amtrak, told us launching a new train is never easy.
There's always unforeseen hurdles that you have to overcome. But we've worked with the FRA to pass all of the tests, to prove that these trains are safe to operate, to prove that the new technology works seamlessly and flawlessly and smoothly. And that's what got us across the line.
Although the new trains can reach 160 miles an hour, about 10 miles faster than the old Acelas, trip times will not improve, at least not at first. That means about 3 hours between D.C. and New York and 3.5 between New York and Boston. And overall, the U.S. still lags behind other developed nations in passenger rail service and infrastructure.
We've got a very long way to go. This is a beginning, right? This is a start, and it's good. But one of the points I hope we can make today over and over again is that the process that got us to this moment can't stop.
That said, future battles over Amtrak funding still loom. But at least the next generation of high-speed train service is finally on track. And one thing I did notice, Errol, and this is perhaps kind of a little self-aggrandizing, but I was in Europe, in the UK earlier this month, and a lot of the features that you saw on just basic commuter trains that you take there from, for example, London to Oxford or so forth, a lot of those features are transferred onto these new trains, but think of the fact that, you know, the U.S. is now just catching up with all of this, really?
Right. Well, I mean, look, one of the things that we don't have that they do have in Europe is, like, you can have a fast train go blasting down the French countryside because it's relatively flat.
Right.
That's not true of the East Coast of the United States.
And a lot of these train lines are much older and also winding, which has been one of the major complications in terms of getting the speeds up to what we might envision as this high-speed thing that you would see in, for example, like Japan.
Now, the place that you You embarked from Union Station, which I think a lot of New Yorkers maybe have seen. It is a big, glorious station.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Department of Transportation is going to kind of take over direct management of it?
Yeah, and this fits into a couple different, puzzle pieces all into one. Amtrak had already, within the last year or so, kind of taken over supervision of Union Station. And it is still in kind of recovery mode after, like we saw in many pockets of the country, COVID really ravaged it. You saw a lot of businesses shut down. You saw homeless population popping up inside the building itself. Now USDOT is going to be taking over from Amtrak. They argue that they're better suited to run this, but of course this also comes within the context of Trump essentially really imposing his will on D.C. in recent weeks, deploying the National Guard, including at Union Station. So there are a lot of questions outstanding as to what the implications are going to be for the station itself.
So that's the D.C. end of it. What about Penn Station? There's going to be some changes there as well.
Right. So Penn Station on this end, and that's why you saw Train Daddy along for the ride today. They are working to try to improve the infrastructure underground, or whatever it might look like, at Madison Square Garden in the coming years. And their goal is to try to see construction start by 2027, so 2 years from now.
Okay. Great work. Thanks very much, Kevin.
No problem.
We are going to take a break now, and when we come back, 3 members of the city's Department of Correction were suspended following the 9th inmate death in custody this year. I'm going to talk about it next with a leading advocate. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Burke.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
Watch this. I can make it hotter, I can make it colder. Hotter, colder. From my phone. Smart birdhouse. Even the birds have Spectrum Wi-Fi. Who likes treats? You do. That's right, yes you do. Very impressive, son. And one more. Nice.
Can I change colors?
Launch party mode. Yeah.
It's all about connecting with the fastest, most reliable internet from Spectrum.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. 3 Department of Correction employees have been suspended following another death at Rikers Island over the weekend. Early on Saturday morning, officers were conducting a tour and found a 29-year-old man unresponsive in his cell. The investigation remains ongoing, and this marks the 9th death in Department of Correction custody since the beginning of this year. All of this comes as the federal judge in charge of reviewing the troubled jail complex announced that she intends to have a federal receiver take control of the complex. Judge Laura Swain is still in the process of considering who will take over as a federal receiver. The city is legally mandated to close Rikers Island by 2027, but an independent Rikers Commission has warned that the city is not on track and will not meet that deadline. Joining me now to talk more about all of these issues is Darren Mack. He is the co-director of Freedom Agenda, part of the Urban Justice Center. I want to I guess, start, Darren, thanks for coming in, with what we know so far about what happened. We got a very bare bones explanation from the Department of Correction.
Yeah, so, first, my condolences to the Billa family for losing their loved one tragically on Rikers Island. For Freedom Agenda, many of our members have lost loved ones on Rikers as well. As far as we know, Mr. Billa was found in his cell unresponsive. He was in a medical unit known as the PACE unit. And what's even devastating that, being in the highest level of care on Rikers Island, the PACE unit, the program to accelerate clinical effectiveness. This is supposed to be the highest level of care, and this underscores that no one is safe on Rikers Island. 10 deaths this year already, 43 deaths during Mayor Adams since he took office, and it's a tragedy that another death, another family has to grieve. And it's a tragedy that the Department of Corrections, they issue this recycled statement to the family. It sends a clear message that they're more concerned about the inconvenience of managing, a PR statement rather than reckoning with, the tragedy that happened.
The 3 suspensions, what does that say to you, that 3 corrections personnel were suspended? Yeah,
accountability is important. Equally important is taking action to, 1, reduce the population on Rikers Island, which the Department of Corrections has the power to do, utilizing the 6A early release program, which has been effective. And also, the mayor basically implementing the plan to close Rikers. Just in March, the Lippman Commission proposed several suggestions to get us back on track. And unfortunately, this administration hasn't lifted a finger to implement that plan.
So, say a little more about the early release program you're describing.
Yeah, so the Department of Corrections Commissioner has the power to release people who are serving a city sentence of 1 year or less. And this program is under supervision, and this program has proven to be effective. And there's literally hundreds of people who are actually eligible right now to get in this program. And unfortunately, DOC Commissioner hasn't been utilizing it to reduce the population.
When you say under supervision, do you mean like an ankle bracelet or visits from a probation officer, that kind of thing?
It's not an ankle bracelet. It's basically like you have to report back in to whoever the agency that's managing the ATI services, Alternative Incarceration Services. So yeah, this is something that could be utilized and that's been proven to be effective.
The idea that a 29-year-old who's waiting for his day in court should simply turn up dead on a Saturday or early in the morning, these are the kind of problems, the 43 deaths that you alluded to, are exactly why the federal judge has decided that they need basically a takeover of the complex, right?
Yeah, so, this has been a problem for a long time. I was detained on Rikers Island as a teenager when it was 20,000 people detained there. It was out of sight and out of mind, but it wasn't until survivors of Rikers like myself, family members who lost their loved ones or had loved ones on Rikers Island, basically made noise about what was happening, decades later, and then, we basically, came to the conclusion that New Yorkers came to the conclusion that Rikers Island couldn't be fixed, that Rikers Island couldn't be reformed, that the only solution was decarceration, ultimately closure.
Yeah, I mean, that is, in fact, the law. The law is that the complex will be closed, that the places that are being built right now, I drive past the Brooklyn House of Detention all the time, and it's under construction. They're doing something similar in Queens. They're going to do something similar in the Bronx. And the big fight over the one in Manhattan has been going on for a while now. But the money is allocated. The contracts have been put out. These alternative institutions are going to get built. From your point of view, from the point of view of advocates, the idea is not simply to close Rikers and everybody just goes home. The idea is to have better institutions that are cleaner, that are safer, that are better lit, that are connected to the courts, because the whole point is that they're waiting for their day in court. How is that process going as far as you're concerned?
Unfortunately, due to this administration's dragging its feet to issue out the RFPs for the demolition and construction, There has been delays. It's moving along, but it's slow. But thankfully to City Council, the Speaker Adams and City Council, we finally have $50 million invested in mental health and justice impacted supportive housing and all those things to reduce the jail population, to close the pipelines that's feeding incarceration. So the work continues, and we hope, with this death that just happened, that the mayor do something different to implement this plan to close Rikers and reduce the population.
On January 1st, whether the mayor is still Eric Adams or there's a new mayor, what does the next administration need to do? So the next administration basically, right now, AMKC is the largest facility out of the 10 jails on Rikers Island, and it's been empty for months. And under the Renewable Rikers Act, when that was passed in 2021, when the administration, if a land or any facility is not being utilized by the Department of Corrections, then under the Renewable Rikers Act, they could transfer that land or facility to the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, and this is something that this mayor could do right now, and whoever's the mayor next year, they could move that forward. They could continue to invest in the things that we know that's evidence-based to close the pipelines that feed incarceration and expedite the closure of Rikers Island, in its entirety. You talk about, we know that there are many streams that feed into the carceral system, if you want to call it that, the technical name. But what's one thing that you'd like to see the next mayor do that you think would substantially cut the flow of people who keep ending up in jail? Yeah, there's this thing called FACT teams. It's like teams of mental health experts that go out into the communities, they could go out into the subways and connect people who have mental health issues and who are unhoused as well to the services that they need. We need to beef this system up. We need to be invested in this because, half of the population on Rikers Island right now has a mental health diagnosis, and 20% of that population has a serious mental health illness. So if we build the community-based mental health services like these FACT teams up, this will drive down the population, drive down the pipelines that's causing incarceration in the first place. Okay. We're still talking with a lot of the candidates. I'm sure that this will come up with them. Thanks so much for coming by tonight. Great to see you. Thank you so much for having me. All right, let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll talk about yesterday's meeting between Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, Zohran Mamdani, and some local leaders. I'll be joined by my politics panel in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
If it's the theater you love, then we've got just the ticket. On Stage is your all-access pass to Broadway, off-Broadway, and the best live entertainment in the city. The interviews and backstage exclusives. All that's made On Stage the go-to source for entertainment for over 20 years. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for On Stage. Also available on the Spectrum News app. I'll see you at the theater, exclusively on Spectrum.
I'm kind of a deal hunter. I like to make sure we got the best deal.
We used a Spectrum savings calculator before. I learned that since we're existing Spectrum Internet customers, we get a mobile line for a year.
Having a line for a year would be amazing. I looked at you and I said, how is the savings so substantial?
Switch and save with one mobile line included with your internet service. Backed by the Spectrum commitment to keep you connected.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are turning our attention back to the latest from the campaign trail. The race for mayor, of course, is on everybody's mind, and here to help me make sense of it is my politics panel. Susan Kang is a political science professor at John Jay College and a leading member of the New York City Democratic Socialists of America. And joining us as he does every Wednesday is New York One political commentator Gerson Barrero. Thank you both for being here. I wanted to start by talking about some ethics issues. Last week, the former chief advisor to Mayor Adams, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, was indicted on felony corruption charges. And along with her son and several business owners and Deputy Commissioner of DCAS, Jesse Hamilton, they were all arrested. They were all indicted. And according to the Manhattan District Attorney, Lewis-Martin and Hamilton received cash, catered food, and other benefits as bribes in exchange for moving government policy to benefit different businesses. Mayor Adams has refused to answer questions about whether Lewis-Martin is still part of his re-election campaign, telling reporters, quote, "That's a wrap." But is it a wrap? This obviously doesn't help Adams, Gerson Barrero, but will it hurt him?
I think that it hurts him, but then you can't use the word ethics and speak about Eric Adams or any of his administration, the people, and I'm saying generalizing because there's so many, we never know where the next surprise is going to come from. So this is an ethics lacking kind of mayoralty. It's amazing that it should be that at this point, that we're still, I mean, we're 69 days away from November 4th, and that we're still talking about things that we don't know anything about, and then he gets annoyed at the fact that he's put people that are ethically challenged. I don't understand that what he doesn't see that rest of New Yorkers, his poll numbers are negative, under negative right now. In the latest poll that hasn't been released. So I don't know what he's talking about.
Okay, but there's a percentage of New Yorkers who will support Eric Adams, no matter what kinds of allegations come out, because they're sympathetic to his argument, which is that we're not really engaged in ethical violations. This is kind of the way things are done. And compared to things that also have happened in politics, this is very small potatoes. And I'm not saying I agree with this, but when you look at things that do happen in politics, like things that look like naked corruption, this is kind of small potatoes. So for that population of his supporters, it doesn't matter what kind of allegations come out. It doesn't hurt him. People who don't like him continue to not support him.
Interesting take. Let's talk about macho politics. Last weekend, Mayor Adams and Zohran Mamdani both tried to bench 135 pounds at a Brooklyn event. The mayor ended up calling his opponent Ma'am Scrawny based on Mamdani's struggles with the barbell. Another candidate for mayor, attorney Jim Walden, took part in a demonstration boxing match against a retired NYPD officer. That was a Cops and Kids charity event. He wanted to show that, quote, Jim Walden will fight for New Yorkers. Unfortunately for Jim Walden, he could not talk to us about the event because he ended up with a concussion by the time it was all over. Susan, should these candidates train more, or should they just not do this? You can tell there's no women in the race.
Right. And that's the thing is that one of my friends said, could you imagine a woman candidate bragging about how good she is at Pilates? No, we can't, because this is a very gendered thing. And the fact that it gets a lot of attention other than here's a couple of good-natured things that somebody was doing at an outdoor festival suggests that, you know, gender politics still matter quite a lot. Zohran Mamdani ran the New York City Marathon twice. You don't see him bragging about that because it's a personal accomplishment of his. That's not something I could ever do. We should think about these candidates based on the things they say that they're going to support in terms of their policy and worry less about this kind of performative, you know,
I didn't know
events.
he'd run the marathon. That actually explains a lot. He probably should have mentioned that.
Well, he's not going to do it because, like you say, it's a personal accomplishment. You're healthy, you want to stay in shape, you want to do that. But to do bench presses and then the mayor who, you know, he's like in love with himself. He's like, look, you know, he walks and he likes to be complimented.
Respect, he handled it pretty well.
But I think also that Andrew Cuomo and all that, this is childish, stupid, it's macho male nonsense. You know, I was embarrassed by it. But I was surprised at Mamdani's handlers, which goes to show you they're not making props or making him sure that he looks. He tried it. They should have trained him at least to bench press something, but he didn't want to get into it, and I congratulate Mamdani for that.
Good enough. Speaking of Andrew Cuomo, in an effort to rebrand himself, he made a campaign video with him talking with his daughter about which campaign song to use. I think it's supposed to make him more likable. Does it make him more relatable? And Was that the problem he needed to solve?
No. You know, and choosing the song, I suggested, by the way, kidding around with them, I went ahead. What about Bad Bunny's, you know, Un Verano en Nueva York, if you're really going through this whole thing? I mean, this is nonsense. You're going to select the campaign theme song? Why don't you have an original one, you know, song? And by the way, Billy Joel moved out of New York. He lives in Florida now. I know he loves Billy Joel. This is, I found it, look, I understand the attempt. He should have listened to his daughters during the primary. Maybe he could have done better in listening to younger people. So I'm sorry, Andrew, this doesn't work. It looks kind of silly. You know, I think that lane of videos like that, I think Zohran has got it down pat.
Look, I agree with Curtis Lewa, who said that when we try to do these videos, we come off as cringe, right? That's the language he used. And I think he's got his finger on the pulse, right? I think his daughters are very charming, and it doesn't hurt him, but I don't think it helps him. It's not going to help him get a new audience or new supporters. It does kind of humanize him a bit, but that's not adding that much to what Andrew Cuomo brings to, you know, his candidacy or the race.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I was getting at. Is that the problem you need to solve? It's like, hey, I would have won the primary if people liked me more. I don't think that's what the problem was, right? Well, I mean, I thought it was
he definitely didn't try to get people to like him. That's for sure, though.
Well, but that's Andrew Cuomo. He has never won on the likability contest. He's never been one of those guys that wants to be, he doesn't like campaigning. He just likes to prove that he should concentrate on what he accomplished in all the years. But he's been out there more than anybody else, including Eric Adams, and concentrate on what you will do different or add to those accomplishments. But the negative thing is, like, he's at 60%, and Eric Adams is negative, I don't know, 50%.
Single digits.
Yeah, single digits, something like that. So these are not likable guys. That's not going to help him because people, it's always Andrew Cuomo. All of a sudden, he brings in his daughter, which, by the way, he has been a good father to all three. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, no, I met the daughter, and they seem to really hit it off. And
yeah.
She's definitely a plus on the campaign trail.
Right.
Let's take a short break. I've got more to talk about with this panel. We'll do that in 2 minutes. Stay with us. Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 on Spectrum News New York 1. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum. Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
The morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where I am once again joined by my politics panel, Susan King and Herson Barrero. And Susan, yesterday there was this meeting at a church. It happened to be my church, Cornerstone Baptist Church in Brooklyn, where Mamdani and he met with Hakeem Jeffries, he met with Yvette Clarke, and there were about 20 ministers there as well. this question keeps coming up about when or if senior Democrats like Hakeem Jeffries are going to endorse Mamdani. From my point of view, or actually I'd love to get your take on it, does it even matter? I mean, Mamdani won the district in the primary. He will probably win it in the general. He doesn't necessarily need the endorsement for that, right?
I think, as you said, it matters not so much for the mayoral race. It matters more for how the National Democrats want to position themselves vis-a-vis a national rising star. So do they want to sort of line up around these politics, like a politics of hope, a politics of economic security, or do they want to continue playing it safe? And we saw the latest polling numbers about how Democrats feel about the conflict, right, in Gaza, and I think it would be good for them to support him for many reasons, because the reasons why they say they're withholding support is because of the Israel question.
Right.
So something like 75% of Democrats say that they don't want more military support and that they're sympathetic to the Palestinians in this conflict. So I think it would be smart.
I don't understand what the problem is. I really don't, because yes, he's running eventually for speaker, he feels, but the speaker job you get in a different manner, not the way that he's in. And quite frankly, he's a nice guy, effective congressman, but he's weak as a speaker. I'll say that in terms of what is out there with polls. This is not me attacking our leader of the Democratic Party. I'm not a Democrat. I just find it weak that they have not taken a position that he's got to come in with, oh, I'm coming in with the Congressional Black Caucus leader. Well, why don't you bring in the Hispanic Congressional, which is leader, which is Adriano Espaillat? Or why don't you bring in Nida Velázquez? They're like, you know, really, or why don't you bring in AOC, who was more popular? There's a poll, by the way, that you can probably be released, that AOC is the most popular Democrat in New York City, New York State. And he's like at 5%, she's like at 12%, 10, 12%. But the problem is I don't understand his logic in playing this out. Dude, you're from New York. You can take care of New York first, do the right thing by your party if you're a real Democrat, and stop the nonsense. He's your candidate, period. That's it.
Let's talk about this Trump takeover. President Trump has threatened to deploy National Guard troops on the streets of New York to address public safety issues. Governor Hochul says that she called the president and assured him that soldiers are not needed. But isn't that, this is the same governor, of course, Herson, who called in the National Guard herself to patrol the subways with the cooperation of the mayor, by the way. Do Democrats need to sort of get their story straight on this issue of militarizing public safety?
I don't think they should get in a public fight with this lunatic, this criminal in chief, this convicted felon, and decide him what law and order should be like. Let him bring in the troops and let New Yorkers react to him. I like to see New Yorkers finally get back their soul and their spirit and go and picket him and pick up the troops and go to Trump Plaza and show up with 20,000 people. New Yorkers have to wake up to the fact that this is an abuser, he's a New Yorker, and he's trying to intimidate him. We don't need Governor Hochul to play this game with him. I think New Yorkers can stand up and defend themselves, and they'll pull out. Bring in the troops, you sucker.
Give them a taste.
Okay, so I kind of feel like it's good for Governor Hochul to be strongly against this. Whether or not she can effectively stop it is another story. I'm glad to see she's growing a backbone, because initially she seemed to be willing to cooperate with the administration. And I think that she's looking to 2026.
Yes, for sure. Let's talk about somebody who's not here right now, but used to be here on Wednesdays, and that, of course, is Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate for mayor. He has been pounding hard on the issue of crime in New York City, saying that it's out of control, it's in need of thousands more cops on the streets. Is that a message that's going to get him votes? I feel like this was tried in the primary and it just didn't work. On the other hand, general election's kind of a different conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think that that's sort of his lane, right? So somebody who started the Guardian Angels, it makes sense for him to hit on law and order. I don't know how many New Yorkers are going to be convinced by this. I think that they're more worried about things like affordability. I think that they're more worried about things like the cost of childcare. And so the people who care about these issues will definitely be energized by Sliwa. But even Andrew Cuomo is very quiet about this issue now. So I think that that's interesting.
Well, he'll get more votes than Eric Adams. How that? He's going to finally beat Eric Adams in an election in a four-way race. And quite frankly, most New Yorkers will trust Curtis Sliwa because he's been constantly fighting crime without being on the public dole in terms of being an NYPD officer, which is what Eric Adams promised. I trust more on crime fighting. I really trust Curtis Lewa more than I do Eric Adams because he's a failure. He's run the department to his benefit, and he's really not done the job and used the resources. That's why everybody's saying, well, Andrew Cuomo, right? He's all of a sudden not the 5,000 cops. He hasn't figured out what else to say. So that is, in fact, Curtis Lewa's lane, and I trust him in it.
In our last minute, this whole issue of disqualifying Mamdani, that's what I hear Eric Adams trying to do. Called him a communist today. You know, the latest social media posting from Andrew Cuomo, sort of listing things that the DSA has in its national charter and saying, this is what this guy stands for. He can't be the mayor. We've got to vote against him. I always thought that, especially at this stage of the game, you should be making a positive case for yourself, not trying to sort of exclude or disqualify the other guy, right? I mean, it's too late for that.
I think we agree on that one. 69 days to go to November 4th. I think you better start defining who you are. Stop trying to take down this guy. By the way, I do think that the argument they could make is that, you know, he really hasn't been vetted. Mamdani hasn't really been vetted by the political reporters. And we had a congressman who actually was elected in Long Island. We found out that we should have vetted him and done something, and there's still something to do the job by investigative reporters.
So I agree that they should be making their own positive case. The outcome of the primary showed that these arguments didn't work with voters, so times have changed. And also, I think Cuomo deleted one of his tweets. It was one about the 4-day work week because people piled on. Because he was like, if this happens, New York will be destroyed.
Yeah, give me some of that. Yeah,
people were like, I want a 4-day work week.
Sounds pretty good.
So I think that they're out of touch.
Aren't we doing that now?
Very interesting.
Yeah,
work from home has scrambled the whole question.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks so much for coming by. Great talking with both of you. That is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You done at the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
We chose Spectrum Business because every second matters in our operation. We need a network that can move as quickly as we need to.
We've built some clientele that are not local, and live streaming is the way we connect.
We are a takeout restaurant. You order your food online, half our business is online. So we needed something dependable, reliable, with great service.
The state-of-the-art facility depends upon having a state-of-the-art network to support classroom engagement.
When we had our grand opening, we needed to be able to operate from day one with ease.
Join the network made for business with solutions made for every size. Visit spectrum.com/made-for-business to get started.
This election year is all about New York City. There